Who Owns the Future, Chapter 3. Money is seen through one computer scientist's eyes. And I'll say there's not going to be as much that I'm calling out from this chapter. It's more like one overarching concept that I've talked about before and I'm really interested in, but I will call out, I like Jaron Lanier's approach to this chapter. He's tackling a really complex area in the economy, and that's obviously not his specialty. Like, as a computer scientist, it might chip away at his credibility on all of the arguments in this book if he claims or if he acts like he's an expert in everything, because we know that can be true. Instead, he frames it as, he says explicitly, I don't pretend to be an economist, but as a computer scientist, I can look at this from a information systems standpoint, which he therefore is an expert in. Ancient money was information storage that represented events in the past. To the ears of many, a financier at this early stage, money had not been born yet, only accounting. That kind of money can be called past-oriented money. Money forgets, but God remembers. God knows how you earn that dollar and keeps a different set of books, moral books, based on that memory. If not God, then karma or Santa Claus. And he's talking about the moral aspect of divinity, not the whole of divinity. And I liked that. That's really my only reason for noting that. It touches this idea of like the all-knowing aspect of, oneness or whatever. Whether it's God who knows and keeps a book, or it's oneness, which would then be tied to karma. Like, really any belief system, you can kind of conceptualize it like this. And money is sort of just the manifestation of your action. But it's that store of value of the action that you made. So in today's networked world, money stored in some computers remembers more than money stored in other computers. This can cause problems. One problem is a temptation to corruption. If you own the fastest computers with the most access to everyone's information, you can just search for money and it will appear. This is where he says, I make no claim to be an economist. As a computer scientist, however, I consider how information systems evolved, and that could provide a window on economics that might be of use. For quite some time now, much of the new money brought into the world has actually been a memorialization of behavioral intent. It has been an account of the future as we plan it rather than the present as we measure it. And then he gets into, so this is where it gets into that one, the one overarching concept that I wanted to address. And here he kind of goes into how we make promises, and choosing which promises to make and how to keep them is sort of how we're operating. So banks make a loan based on a confidence that you can repay it back, that you can pay it back, but there is latitude in how you'll do it. And multiple banks compete in part by having different heuristics to assess your loan worthiness. And so he's talking about the banking system and the structure of that kind of information system. He has a little sidebar here that says, both progressives like Tom Hartman and libertarians like Ron Paul assail the fractional reserve banking system. It is often deemed fraudulent, a tool of the international bankers, or a form of indentured servitude. While I agree there is a tremendous cause to criticize the present system, the venom seems directed at basic principles that deserve to be understood in a better light. So again, this is the overarching thing that I wanted to zero in on because it's something that I've talked about before, and I share a similar stance. And the Federal Reserve, in understanding how that operates and how it interacts with our banks and our government, it exposes for sure some concern, a cause for concern on that system. Here's where I'm checking myself, and this is a good, what is it called? A good retraction for me is I took the emotional side of, arguments from people like these that claim that it's this really malicious thing. But instead, I think it's just a flawed system that we put in place with good intentions, which is ultimately a common thread for Jaron Lanier's arguments. And like I said, there's not much more to this chapter in what I'm taking away personally. Just it's really just addressing kind of the psychology of money and the flaws, and sort of this holistic view of money, past, present, and future, and how in the past, like in ancient time, money only really represented the past. And in recent history and currently, it's keeping tabs on the past, but it's also measuring against the future. And ultimately, one of the big claims that he makes is that if you don't have a future focused view on money, that it's kind of synonymous with a pessimistic outlook on humanity's ability to grow and develop and innovate. So it's all about balance, and it's about having the right systems in place and not exposing those things. He did call out fractional reserve banking as a maligned system, which I also agree with. So that's the type of thing where that one seems to be a clear, apparent taking advantage of the system type of thing, whereas other instances might not be as explicit.